The murder case of Altan Tuya Sharibu, a 28-year-old Mongolian translator whose body was blown to bits in the Malaysian jungle, has just about everything.
It's a shocking tale. The gruesome murder of a young Mongolian woman. And it's one the Malaysian government doesn't want us to tell.
I'm being deported.
Why she was killed, no one knows, fueling suspicions of a massive cover-up. But in Australia, new information emerges.
I'm sort of, hang on, what are you telling me? Did you pull the trigger?
I'm Steve Chow. On this episode of 101 East, we investigate a sensational murder mystery.
On the night of the 19th of October 2006, Altan Tuya Sharibu was bundled into an unmarked car. Taken from outside a house in the suburbs of Malaysia's capital, Kuala Lumpur, she was driven out of the city to a remote jungle clearing.
I won't say anything.
What happened was just like in the movies. I've seen such terrible things only in the movies. But this time, the movie became my reality.
Somewhere between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m, Altan Tuya was shot in the head with a high-powered semi-automatic weapon. Military-grade explosives were then strapped to her body and detonated.
I went to that place several days later. I had to go there, where my daughter was killed. I saw the actual crime scene. It looked like there'd been a war, a bomb site. That's what I saw. Just imagine.
So it was from this road that Altan Tuya was taken about a kilometre into the forest, where she was shot and her body blown to smithereens. 2 Special Force policemen have been convicted and sentenced to death for her murder. But more than 8 years later, there are still so many unanswered questions about what happened that night and why she was killed. The convicted murderers were Azila Hadri and Cyril Azza Umar. They were members of an elite protection squad. Their job, to guard Malaysia's top leaders. Why they would murder the young Mongolian woman remains a mystery. And with no motive ever established, speculation is rife others were involved and are being protected at the highest level of government.
The number one question on everyone's mind is motive. Everyone wants to know who ordered it. Because these 2 officers who have been found guilty beyond reasonable doubt now didn't even know her. You know, they had no reason to have hurt her in any way.
She was a free-spirited, open-hearted person. She had this strong self-confidence to live, learn, and take care of herself.
At 28, Altan Tuya Sharibu was divorced and had 2 small sons who lived with her parents in Mongolia. With a talent for languages, she travelled the world as an interpreter. In 2006, she was bound for Malaysia.
I asked her, "Why are you going there? Do you have any particular work there? Do you know anyone there?" She said, "I've met this big boss there." By big boss, we Mongolians mean a person with great power.
Altan Tuya was going to see this man, Razak Baginda, an advisor and close confidant of Malaysia's then Deputy Prime Minister, Najib Razak. The 2 of them began an affair in late 2004, travelling together to Shanghai, Kuala Lumpur and France. During their relationship, Baginda says he gave Altan Tuya tens of thousands of dollars to help her through difficulties. But Alton Tuya was after more, and her last trip to Malaysia was all about getting it.
If you prefer money than life, it's okay. Razak, don't play, okay? You call me or I'll come to your home today.
Razak! Bastard! Come out from the house!
As her harassment of her former lover escalated, instead of going to the police for help, Baginda went to someone he could trust, the Deputy Prime Minister's personal security chief, who introduced him to Senior Officer Azila Hadri. In an affidavit, Baginda says Azila boasted he'd killed people in the past and said he could fix the problem. Baginda says he warned the officer not to do anything untoward. As the days went on, Alton Tuya became worried she was being followed and began to fear for her life. On the afternoon before she was murdered, she went to the police to make an official report.
I'm just a normal girl trying to meet my lover who lied to me, who promised me many things but now wants to put me in jail or kill. Maybe it's my fault to blackmail him, but I have my own problem because of his lies. If something happened to me, please check with this person.
But that night, she went to his house alone. And it was then that she was taken away by Azila and his junior officer, Cyril Umar, and never seen alive again. A few weeks later, acting on evidence from witnesses to the abduction, the police detained the two officers and also Baginda. Her former lover was charged with abetting the murder. But during his trial, a key witness became concerned that crucial evidence was being suppressed.
Today we witness another episode of a consistent pattern of abuse of power.
He took what he knew to the then opposition leader, Anwar Ibrahim.
Recently, one of the witnesses in the Alton Tuya trial approached us with detailed information of events connected to her disappearance and murder. The information was shocking. I was arrested under 302.
The witness was Bala, a private investigator hired by Baginda to protect his family against Alton Tuya. The alleged information documented in a statutory declaration. Among the most explosive allegations were that the Deputy Prime Minister had also had an affair with Alton Tuya and had introduced Baginda to her at a diamond exhibition in Singapore, that the three of them had dined together in Paris, and that Alton Tuya was promised $500,000 commission for assisting in a controversial submarine deal with the French. That evening, the Deputy Prime Minister fronted the media at Parliament House.
I never met her at all. I'm not worried because the truth will prevail, and I believe in the system. I believe that I've not done anything wrong, so therefore there's nothing to be worried about. Life goes on.
Then the next morning, in an extraordinary turn of events, Bala fully retracted his statement, declaring it inaccurate and not the truth, and that he'd been compelled to sign it. He then mysteriously disappeared, leaving lawyer Amerik Sidhu, who drafted the original statement, bewildered.
My initial response was, this is total rubbish, because he had spent a long time with me, going through everything piece by piece. So when the phrase under duress was used, I was convinced there's somebody else behind it.
Amerik had to wait more than 2.5 years to find out what happened.
Bala telephoned me from Kashmir. The first thing he said was basically, sorry boss, I've caused you a lot of trouble.
The two finally met up again in Singapore, Bala telling Amerik he stood by everything in his original statement.
Is there anything in the first SD which you said which is not true?
No, nothing.
The PI then recounted how he was intimidated into changing it. First by a good friend of the Deputy Prime Minister's wife, and then by Najib Razak's younger brother.
Army intelligence was waiting in front of my house, he said. They were already watching your house, he said. And the Malayman asked me whether you are married. I said yes. Do you love your family? I said yes. If you love your family, just follow instruction, just follow him. Everything will be okay, he said.
Hello?
Spooked, Bala called his wife at home.
எட்டரை மணி கால் பண்ணி என்னை கேட்டார் மதர் இஸ் எனிபடி அவுட் சைட் தேர் நான் சொன்னேன் ஏன் ஒரு சேஃப் காட்டி நிற்கிது சார் அப்படின்னு சொன்னேன் யூ ஜஸ்ட் லாக் த கேட் உள்ளுக்கு கொண்டு போ பிள்ளைங்களாம் கொண்டு போன்னு சொன்னார் கொண்டு போயிட்டு வச்சது அதோட நோ கால்ஸ் நோ நத்திங்.
After that, he offered me 5 million for me to retract the SD.
Then at 2 a.m, Bala arrived home escorted by 2 men.
லைக் பயந்து போய் அப்போ நான் கேட்டேன் என்ன ஆச்சு சுரேஷ்ட்டு கேட்போம் சுரேஷ் டோல்மி பல வந்து நம்பர் 1 மேலே வந்து இது பண்ணி எஸ்டி கொடுத்துருக்காரு தப்பாக கொடுத்துருக்காரு அதனால் பாலாவுக்கு உயிர் மேலே ஆபத்து ஸோ நீங்கள் என்ன செய்யணும் இந்த நாட்டை விட்டு வெளியே போயிடணும் அப்போ நான் கேட்டேன் அப்புறம் என் பிள்ளைங்க படிப்புலாம் என்ன ஆகுறதுன்னு கேட்டேன் எல்லாமே நாங்கள் பார்த்துக்குவோம் மனசுலாம் எப்படி நாங்கள் சர்வைவ் பண்ணுறதுன்னு கேட்கும்போது பாலாவுக்கு வந்து 20,000 வெள்ளி சம்பளமோ 5 மில்லியனும் ஆஃபர் பண்ணியிருக்காங்க அப்படின்னு யார் ஆஃபர் பண்ணது கேட்டதுக்கு நஜீப்னு சொல்லி சொன்னார். We cannot tell the how much is.
Bala and his family were escorted out of the country the next morning.
They say go for holiday for few months, not for 5 years. They say only for until PM Najib come PM you come back. How many months? Not even 1 year. Now 5 years, man.
During those 5 years in exile, a lot happened. Without his alibi being tested in court or having to give a defence, Razak Baginda was acquitted. And very unusual for Malaysia, there was no appeal. For Baginda, it was vindication.
Let me put it this way, I am innocent. And at some point I said, God willing, inshallah, I will be released because I'm innocent. So at some
and he
point,
maintained Najib Razak was in no way involved.
What I have said today is what I told the police. That Datuk Najib had never met the deceased. How do I know? It's like asking me, I mean, I know. Okay? I know.
6 months after Baginda's acquittal, Najib Razak was sworn in as Prime Minister. But his leadership would be haunted by questions surrounding Alton Tuya's murder and the claim she was owed money from a controversial submarine deal. The billion-dollar purchase of 2 Scorpene submarines from the French was signed in 2002 by Najib Razak when he was Defence Minister. Baginda, who brokered the deal, insists Alton Tuya was never involved.
The purported deal was signed in June 2002. I first met the deceased November or December 2004. That's almost a 2-year lapsed. So I just failed to see the connection, but yet it still went on and on and on. These are the lies these are the lies that
But Baginda's connection with the deal didn't stop when it was signed. His wife was a director of a Kuala Lumpur-based company, Perimaker, which was awarded a $125 million contract to provide support and coordination services for 6 years while the submarines were built. Confidential documents from an ongoing French investigation into the deal, leaked to an online media outlet, reveal that Alton Tuya was by Baginda's side at least some of the time.
There were receipts and air travel documents of both Razak Baginda and Alton Tuya. She had travelled to Macau, she had travelled to Hong Kong and to Paris with Baginda. The link with Alton Tuya in the Scorpion submarine may have been informal, at the least. But it did not preclude the fact that she may have known many of the details of the procurement.
In 2009, Cynthia Gabriel was head of the Malaysian anti-corruption NGO Suram. that filed a complaint about Perimaker with French authorities and sparked the investigation. The company was formed only a few months prior to the submarine deal.
Perimaker was formed purely and solely to receive the money, which we believe are kickbacks.
The French investigation into bribery and kickbacks is also looking into other companies that appear to have benefited from the deal, including one linked to Baginda and his father.
Some companies formed that Malaysians had no clue about if the French probe had not taken place. And we're not talking about a few 100,000 or 1 million or 2 million. We're talking about hundreds of millions actually being funneled into these companies. And document 97 clearly states who are the main beneficiaries, and it goes back to the political party that's in power.
Cynthia Gabriel has received death threats as a result of her work, but she's not about to retreat, going so far as to question the role of Prime Minister Najib Razak.
He certainly knows about the submarine deal because he signed it. So he cannot absolve himself of responsibility. He is responsible. He is fully responsible for the Scorpion submarine deal.
Based on the French documents, Cynthia is also convinced the Prime Minister would have known of Altan Tuya.
Even if he had never met her, he would have known what was her role, what was her relationship. He would have known who she was.
Despite repeated requests, Prime Minister Najib Razak declined to be interviewed for this program. But an email response from his office reiterated he had no link whatsoever with the deceased, that there was no wrongdoing on his part in the purchase of the submarines, and that allegations to the contrary are entirely false smears motivated by political gain. Altan Tuya's father, Setef Sharabu, is determined to get justice for his daughter.
It is very difficult for me, mentally, to keep going to Malaysia. I feel horrified, to be honest. It feels as if I'm entering this frozen ice, even though it's a hot tropical country.
Travelling to Malaysia is not only traumatic for him, he believes it's also risky. But he agreed to meet us on neutral ground in Hong Kong.
It's clear their aim was to kill my daughter. My daughter did nothing bad to this country. Maybe she made someone furious or mad, but she wasn't a terrorist. She didn't kill anybody. She didn't illegally cross borders. There must be a huge amount of money, power, and possibly crucial operations behind this. It's obvious.
Ram Karpal Singh is an opposition MP and the lawyer representing Mr Sharabu in his civil case against the two convicted security officers, the Malaysian government and Razak Baginda.
For me, the entire purpose of this case is to find out motive. That's my ultimate goal as far as I'm concerned, and we would not be intimidated by any quarter, that's for sure.
How are you?
Mr Sharabu has waited 8 years for the criminal process to end so his civil proceedings can begin. He's hoping he'll finally find the truth behind his daughter's death. Landing back in Kuala Lumpur after meeting Mr Sharabu in Hong Kong, orders have come down from on high. I'm stopped at passport control and brought here to the immigration office.
I've just been told that I'm on a bad list. This is the second time this has happened to me. When I left to go to Hong Kong to see Mr Sharabu, I was pulled aside, and now it's happening again. It obviously shows the sensitivity of this story, and I've obviously come under the spotlight.
And 5 hours later, having been told I'd broken no laws, I was on my way to a boarding gate.
I'm being deported from Malaysia. I'm being escorted by about 5 customs agents and a man in military outfit. So I'm about to board my flight to Sydney.
Clearly, I'd hit a raw nerve. But back in Australia, our investigation didn't stop. Inside the high security section of this immigration detention centre in Sydney is none other than Cyril Azza Umar, one of the security officers found guilty of Alton Tuya's murder. He and Azila Hadri were originally convicted and sentenced to death in 2009. But in August 2013, that decision was sensationally overturned and they were set free. The prosecution appealed, but incredibly no travel restrictions were imposed on the two. And in January this year, when they were reconvicted, Cyril was nowhere to be found. He'd fled to Australia, where the laws prevent anyone being extradited if they face execution. This man is a distant relative of Cyril's. He doesn't want to be identified because he fears reprisals. We'll call him Frank. Cyril stayed with him until his arrest on the 20th of January this year, after Malaysian authorities issued an Interpol alert.
We were on the ferry. Yep, there's Cyril. There's the Opera House in the background.
And at this stage you knew nothing about his past?
I did not know.
Frank claims it wasn't until the 6th of January he found out Cyril had been on trial for murder and was waiting for the verdict.
We were sitting in my home. I was looking at his passport and I said, look, we've got to get online and do your visa if you want to stay. That's when he proceeded to tell me he'd shot a woman. And I'm sort of, hang on, what are you telling me? I said, are you making this up, or is this the truth? And he said, it's the truth.
And then, according to Frank, Cyril revealed there were not just two at the scene, but three. And shockingly, the third person was Razak Baginda, Alton Tuya's former lover and the Prime Minister's close friend.
I said, did you pull the trigger? Like, did you? He said, no, I didn't pull the trigger. Razak pulled the trigger. But he told me he went back and he blew the body to pieces. Like, yeah. I said, but you had a choice. You had a choice of walking away from the situation and leaving it alone. And he said, I would have been dead. Because what he knew.
Razak Baginda refused to be interviewed. When we put Frank's claim to him, he ridiculed it. Cyril has always maintained he's been made a scapegoat to protect others. But who are the others? And was he speaking literally or metaphorically when he pointed the finger at Baginda? According to Frank, Cyril does have some high-powered connections. And these two mobile phones were his lifeline to them.
Yes. He told me he called Chief Security for the PM. He told me directly, I've got to call him. He said, I've got to have help.
And this list of contacts found among Cyril's personal possessions is an impressive collection of highly confidential numbers.
Like this here, Chief Security Officer rang, 1 p.m.
Among his SMS messages, one to a contact called Salam. Salam is Abdul Salam bin Ahmed, a businessman with a history of bribery and powerful political connections, travelling in the entourage of the former and current Prime Ministers and with close ties to the Special Branch Police. It appears from Cyril's SMS, Salam is acting as a middleman for someone with a lot at stake.
Greetings, boss. I am in difficulties here. I want 2 million Australian dollars before you come to meet me. I need to guarantee the future of my child here. After that, I want 15 million and I will not return to Malaysia. Not ever. I won't bring down the PM.
4.5 hours later, Salam responded with, they want to discuss. Salam didn't respond to our questions about his role as a middleman, but recently visited Cyril in detention for a third time. As we go to air, Cyril remains in detention in Australia. Razak Baginda is director of his own Islamic Peace Foundation. Najib Razak is still Prime Minister. And Altan Tuya's family continues to grieve for their loss.
Her kids hunger for their mother's love. It's missing. It's gone. Nothing can replace a mother's love and care for her children. Nothing. Altan Tuya's life was taken away. She was executed. Someday, those people who did this crime will be punished.
The full response from the Malaysian government spokesperson about the issues raised in this report can be seen on the 101 East website.